So here's Nancy Pelosi apparently starting to feel some heat. There is a story in the Washington Post that was from Friday or Saturday, I should say. House Democrats have blasted Trump's response to the coronavirus pandemic as inept and dangerous. Party leaders insisted on the creation of a special committee to root out abuse. However, Democrats' hold power has largely sidelined itself, struggling so far to adopt remote voting, Zoom video hearings, or any of the alternative methods that have become standard for most workplaces in the age of COVID-19. No administration official has appeared at a congressional hearing in over a month. Committees have been unable to meet in person to debate and advance bills. There's no firm date for when the new oversight panel will start its work. I haven't had a classified briefing in over 6 weeks, said Jason Crow. The bottom line is Democrats, rank and file, are in the House are starting to get a little bit annoyed at the complete sidelining of the House in terms of leadership in this country. It's not like there's not a huge vacuum. Here's Nancy Pelosi. She was on with Jake Tapper, who apparently also has noticed that, like, what's going on here? Now, there's an interview with Joe Biden out there where he's expressing a little bit of disappointment at Pelosi and Schumer. He's not getting too out ahead of this. Later, we're going to play a clip from, of all people, God help me, Mark Cuban, who is talking like we should be hearing Democrats talk like. And we're not. And it was the other day, there were plans to vote, to open up the vote for Democrats, to figure out technologically how to have the first votes in absentia. And Pelosi quashed it. These people should be back in Washington. But if they're not, then at the very least, there should be a way for them to do their job. We figured it out. It's a pain in the ass, but we figured it out. Here's Nancy Pelosi on Sunday with Jake Tapper revealing another problem that we have in this country.
Right. You and Senator Schumer made this major concession on the most recent legislation because you made it okay. So in this one, further.
It wasn't a concession.
No. Well, I mean, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
I understand what Andrew Cuomo said, and I respect his perspective as a governor. But the fact is this: they wanted $250 for the PPP. We support the PPP. We're part of developing it. Small business is entrepreneurial, part of the optimism of America. So we're for that. But we wanted to include more people and more money for the program and for the hospital. So it was always an interim bill. It was always an interim bill. We always said that CARES 2 would be the bill where we would go for state and local.
Right.
And we will in a big way.
I get that, but I just want to play for you the sound from New York Governor Cuomo, because he said he needs money for his state to save New York from an economic tsunami. Take a listen to what he had to say.
We've been talking about funding for state and local governments, and it was not in the bill that the House is going to pass today. They said, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, the next bill. I said to my colleagues in Washington, I would have insisted that state and local funding was in this current bill, because I don't believe they want to fund state and local governments.
So Cuomo says he would have insisted on state funding in the last bill. And now Senator McConnell saying he wants to push the pause button. Yes. Was this a tactical mistake by you and Senator Schumer?
Just calm down. We will have state and local, and we will have it in a very significant way. It's no use going on to what might have been. The administration never even wanted to do. Let me recap this for you. When we said we're not doing $250 unless you open the door for these lower unbanked, we call them unbanked businesses who don't have a fancy banking relationship or this or that, Senator McConnell said absolutely no. We're not doing one penny more than $250. And then unanimously, he passed on Tuesday $480 billion, with many of these increases, including hospitals. And what we have said for the we've been working on CARES 2. And on that, we are including not only the outlays that they have for the coronavirus, but also the loss of revenue that they have. The governors are impatient. I'm a big fan of Governor Cuomo, my own governor. Gavin Newsom has been so spectacular. My mayor, Mayor Breed, the state and local have done their jobs magnificently. They should be impatient. Their impatience will help us get an even bigger number. And that goes for Republican governors too. Governor Hogan of Maryland has been spectacular in all of this. So it's many governors, many mayors, bipartisan, for us to get the largest amount. I'm sorry that we had to have an intervention because we were going from CARES 1 to CARES 2. The intervention came, we made the most of it. And so, as I say to members, judge it for what it does. Don't criticize it for what it doesn't, because we have a plan for that, and that will happen. I think you see the response, even from Republican senators, that Mitch McConnell is getting.
All right. Look, here's the problem with what she's saying. And it may happen, but it also may not. There is no more leverage. Or let me put it this way. There is what we are doing when we are bailing out. We're bailing out different sectors of society. And of course, one should hope, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here, that the urgency from the sector of workers, from the sector of low-income people, middle-class income people, that should be felt more dramatically by Democrats than Republicans. The sectors of finance and corporations should be felt more urgently by Republicans, not the least of which because they're in office right now. And all of these elites, including the Democrats and the Republicans, perceive this as the real economy. It's the only thing that matters. How do we know that? Because once they got their $4 trillion between essentially the capital from the CARES Act and then the leveraging of loans from the Fed, crisis averted as far as these people are concerned. As long as the stock market has stabilized, there is no crisis as far as they're concerned. And so what you must do tactically is take any time that the Republicans perceive a crisis, which will be more often than not a political one that they are worried about, and exploit that. You want us to address your political crisis, you address our political crisis. If it makes you feel better to say policy crisis, then say policy crisis. But the leverage, now that they've paid off finance and the stock market is stable, and now that they have paid out money to small business that they perceive is their base, the leverage is greatly diminished. You're now having to rely on bipartisan pushing for funding for states and for municipalities, but that's going to come anyways. So why are you relying on that leverage? You go in and you want the small business, give us the voting. You want the small business loans? Give us something that is not important to you, but is important to us. She's been sleeping on all of this, sleeping on it. Or, that's the best answer I can give you. Or she just doesn't care. There's just no sense of urgency, period.
Yeah. When Jake Tapper makes his bitch face at Nancy Pelosi, something's gone very, very wrong.
That's right. When he looks like, So when Jake Tapper becomes the spokesperson for the disenfranchised and the displaced in this country, yes, it is a problem.